Hello, happy Saturday, everybody, and even a happy Sunday to you. I don't know if I can wish you a happy Monday, but that's all right. We'll take the weekend. Hope everybody's having a great day so far. Welcome back to Unedited Edits. If you're new to this series, this is where I do a live commentary and talk through of one of the more recent videos that I've edited. And today's video is pretty special. I'm really proud of what we've made and what we're making. It's the most recent addition to Exzactt's solo queue Warzone series, and we've kind of been playing back and forth with the name of what we're going to title this series, because YouTube titles are a completely foreign language. But yeah, this is a new series that he's doing, and we're formatting it to be a little more episodic than a normal YouTube video. And we've been spending more time than we usually do producing these videos. So I knew going into the second episode, which is this one where he reaches gold, spoiler, he hits gold, that I wanted to record some of the process and some of the things that we did to make this happen. So if that's something that interests you, go ahead and grab a cup of coffee or even a glass of water, or if you're not thirsty, I don't know, just grab something, hop in. The one thing I did want to say before we hop right into some of the breakdown work is that I might move this series to either its own channel or even to like my Ko-Fi page, just so it lives in its own separate place. I'm just not sure if my YouTube channel is going to be the best home for it anymore. So if this is a series that you enjoy and you like watching, I'll let you know if that happens. But yeah, let's get into it. So what I normally do for these videos is I kind of talk about the concept and the big picture idea before going into some of the editing work. And what you guys are going to see in the background right now is me going through the selection process and the scripting process. Normally what I do for a video like these, or excuse me, a video like this, is we got to skim through the gameplays. We got to figure out what parts we're going to use, what parts we're not going to use, and then I will come up with a rough script for Exzachtt to read and go over. And it's kind of a collaborative process between him and I. Normally what we do, like I said, is Exzachtt will go through and he gets what he needs to get. He'll send it to me, and I'll just start skimming through stuff and picking out moments and gameplays that we're going to want to use in the video. I think this is called the selects process, or I don't know the official term, but it is a pretty standard process for people that are working with large bulks of media, and it tends to be a very time-consuming process, but a really useful one to go through, especially when you're working with multiple gameplays, because if I don't go through that process, then I'm going to miss a lot of really valuable things that we could use in the video. So yeah, just wanted to show a little snippet of that to let you guys know that that is something that we have to go through, and it is a part of the editing process and an important one. There's not just a hope, a prayer, and a thought that things work out well. We do try to do a little bit of planning. But let's go ahead and hop into some of the editing in the background, and let me talk about the goals and thoughts for what we're trying to achieve in this video. So what you're going to be seeing in the background is me working on the opening shot. And the shot itself is this mountain range, and what I'm going to eventually do is position the Warzone ranks above it. And we're going to use it to illustrate the idea of Exzachtt climbing the ranks to get to the next level. And the shot in itself, or not the shot, excuse me, the opening sequence in itself took a long time to do. So I'll have some more opportunities to talk about it a little bit more. But let's talk big picture. Like what are we doing with this video? What is the goal? How are we going to edit it to fit the tone and the pace and the looks, and what kind of visuals are we going to try to include in this video? So big picture, this video series is the story of how, and you can see I'm I'm working on like different things that we can use in the script to like make this sequence work. But what we're going to be doing is telling the story of how Zach goes from nothing to the ultimate achievement in Warzone, which is Iridescent. It's the highest rank that you can achieve. And the premise revolves around the thought that you can't do it alone. In order to get to this rank, you have to have a team. It's kind of like a stick. I mean, it's true. It's really difficult to do by yourself. But what Zach wanted to do with this series is say, hey, like I can do this by myself. So we have this end goal that we're trying to reach, and we have a pretty clear narrative. You know, we don't have to like arbitrarily think of some story that we have to tell. It's written into the concept of the video. How do we get from 0 to the top rank, right? So when we were talking about this video and some of the imagery that we could use, one of the first things that we were brainstorming and talking about was, you know, climbing the ranks. So how can we climb the ranks to get this ultimate rank, right? And a pretty obvious theme, image, motif. I wish my English was better, man. Around this thought of climbing the ranks is like mountains, like climbing to the top of this mountain. And it's something that we've now used in both videos, and I think it's a good way of adding something outside of like standard Warzone gaming imagery that, one, sets the video apart, and it's something that it looks different, which is cool, and it also serves like a narrative purpose. Even if this shot is only in here for like a second or two, it kind of kickstarts the viewer's mind into thinking like, okay, like what is going on? Because I thought this was a Warzone video. And also it can apply to people who maybe don't watch Warzone regularly, right? So we want to make this video accessible to everybody. And right now what you're seeing is I'm doing the 3D tracking process. DaVinci has a really cool 3D tracking tool. I've only used it a few times, but it works extremely well. You can have a moving image, and it'll find points within the image to track in 3D space, and then you can anchor things at one of those points. So that's what I did. I did this 3D tracking of the mountain range, then we put the ranks there. So that's some of the imagery that we want to use, and we really wanted this video series to be something that nobody else could imitate, because right now rank just came out, and I think eventually people are going to gravitate to this challenge, because it's not a unique challenge. People have done this in Valorant and Apex and other games, but we want Zach to be the first. We want his videos to be the first and the best. So for these video series, we took it upon ourselves to challenge ourselves with how can we actually make this like the best YouTube video? And I think it comes down to us creating this like visual experience. And it's if you've seen the video, you know, it's nothing like, we didn't create a movie masterpiece or anything like that, but we want it to feel like an experience. And it's not just like you're watching him play 4 gameplays in a row and then eventually he gets it, right? Like it should feel like you're going along with him and you're a part of this journey. The way we did that was, first, I attempt to do some motion graphics and animations that I've never done before. And again, it's nothing, if you're in the After Effects world or the animation world, it's nothing overly complicated, but it's new to me. And it was something that I challenged myself to try to learn and figure out within DaVinci. And we were able to pull off some cool things that added value to the video. So 1, we did a lot of animation work. 2, we did a lot of audio work. This is probably some of the better sound design that I've had in terms of not only the music that we've used and the sound effects involved in the videos. And I would say the third part is like the narrative aspect. So we were doing our best to make sure that Zach was telling a story throughout it. And that's built in with the visuals and the music and the sound. And then that's also Exzachtt narrating and giving you his thoughts. Because when you're playing these games, there's not a lot of opportunity for Exzachtt to like commentate while he's in game because he's super focused. So we want to make sure that you feel like you're in Exzacht's mind trying to figure out the best way of doing these things, right? And right now we're working on the visual aspect. I think at the time when I was working on this, Exzachtt hadn't gotten the script back to me yet. Like he hasn't done his voiceover. So I wanted to get a head start on some of the more like time intensive parts of the video. And I think I mentioned it a second ago, but this opening mountain shot was a beast. It was a beast and a half. What ends up going into this shot is we have a pan from, what does it be, right to left? Yeah, we pan from right to left, showing off the mountain range with the floating ranks on top. And right now what I'm doing is I'm trying to position it correctly. Oh, and I forgot. I ended up moving this gold one to the mountain range behind it because you can't see it. In the final shot, I added a vignette. I added some darkness to the border, and it covers up this gold medal. So all the work that I'm doing right now that doesn't end up getting used, which is a W. And I think I'm trying to get it to pulse, to kind of to float up and down and incorporate it into the shot. And I'm doing that with the shake modifier. If you right click on, I believe it's it might be the center property in your inspector tab. One of the position properties in your inspector tab. If you right click, go to modify, I think, and then you're gonna look for shake, and that will create kind of like a random jitter movement. You can increase the smoothness on that modifier, and it'll make it almost wobble or pulse excuse me, in whatever location it's at. So that was what we did, and that's kind of how I composed this shot. We have the mountain range, and then we have, you can see I put the platinum medal in the background because the thought was like we have gold in the foreground, that's like the close one, and then platinum's after that. And I ended up swapping them because you just can't see the gold shot in the final video. But yeah, this opening sequence was, dude, I think I just called you guys dude. I'm sorry about that. But dude, I think it took me 6 to 8 hours to do. And it's mostly due to the fact that I've never done something like this before. I feel like if you're comfortable in the Fusion page, and for anybody who's in DaVinci, I would again recommend getting comfortable in the Fusion page. But I think if you're comfortable in this page, you could probably do it pretty easily. But I'm still learning the software and doing my best to figure out how to do different things. So yeah, it was a process. The question is, after you do something like this, was it worth it? Like, was it the best use of my time? And I think I had issues right here tracking both the gold and the platinum medal. Yeah, I think I'm not sure why I had an issue, but for some reason I couldn't track both of them using the same 3D tracker. So I ended up cropping the left half and putting it on top of the right half of the video, and that ended up working out okay, which is kind of a W. I was lucky that that ended up working, because otherwise I don't know what I would have done. So yeah, the question is, like, was it worth it? Like, does this opening shot do its job? The goal for this, like the goal for your first few frames on a YouTube video, is like it has to grab people's attention. It has to. And you have to do that not only visually, but using audio cues as well. Both serve a massive role to get somebody just interested, right? You've done the job of coming up with the title and thumbnail. And if you can get somebody to click on the video, like the next thought is like, dude, we got to get them to stick around and at least watch the opening minute. And I've talked about this before in unedited edits, but my personal philosophy when it comes to YouTube is I work extremely hard within those opening seconds and minute to earn the viewer's trust and watch time. And then if they get past that part and I like earn their respect to watch past that moment and they get into the rest of the video, then I've done my job. And it's up to the core idea of the video to like engage the viewers through the rest of whatever it is, like whatever the subject is. So does this do its job? I don't know. That might be something for somebody who's watched the video in itself to let me know. But I hope it did. I hope it was enough to earn somebody's view time past those opening seconds. What we do is I take this opening mountain sequence, and then you can see I'm starting to piece together the 3D layout of how we get the shot to work. I wanted to do this in two pieces. We show the medals, like the goal that we want to achieve, right? And then we have to show Zach on his way to get them. And I looked for a while trying to find different character animations of his character that we're using. I believe the character model is Nova. And I looked for different animations of her, like her executions and in-game stuff that we could use, and I couldn't find anything. So what I ended up doing was actually going to Midjourney and creating an AI image of her. I can't remember what the prompt I used was, but I ended up typing like Nova character model climbing snowy mountain, right? And I gave a picture of the model, and then it spit out the image on the left half, and it came out pretty good. I liked it. It's only in frame for maybe a second or two, so there's not enough time for somebody to really stare and figure out what's going on. But the way we set this up is I have 3 separate video image files overlaid on top of each other in 3D space in DaVinci. I do this using an image plane and a merge 3D node. And I have each of the images set up going right to left. So the mountain metal shot is in the far right, and the transition element that we use is a mountain cliff. And I think I'm trying to figure out like which mountain cliff to use. And is this the one I use? I think this is the one I end up using. So we have this middle mountain cliff in front that kind of passes over both of them, and then we have the character model on the left. And instead of animating all these different elements individually, what I do is I set them up so that there you go, there you can see them perfectly right there. So I have them set up right to left, and then you can see I have this virtual camera on the far right, and I move the camera right to left instead of everything else. It's kind of nice to do this because instead of having all these different moving pieces, once you set it up and you have everything looking the way it should look, then you just have to move like one camera. I don't know if this is standard practice, but when I've seen a lot of people do more advanced things in DaVinci, this is normally how I see them do it, and I've had the most success. So right now I'm finishing up positioning this mountain cliff in front, and I think, yeah, you can see kind of a preview of what I'm doing. I'm essentially moving this camera right to left. The cliff comes in front. It's like our transition wipe, and then we cut to the character model in the animation. And as far as this opening shot goes, I think the only other thing that I do is I start doing some fine tuning. So I fine tune the camera movement. Right now I'm adding some lens blur to get this mountain cliff out of focus, and I work on the colors for everything so that it kind of all blends together and looks like it's one continuous shot. And after I finish that, I think, Yeah, it looks like I'm gonna start some of these sound design. I think I'm trying to find the right song that we're gonna use. Yeah, yeah, looks like that's what I'm doing. Sound is always like it's a massive part of editing and videos. Videos that have good sound design will always do better than those that don't. We use Epidemic for most of our audio tracks, and I feel like Epidemic is the best when it comes to the services that I've used looking for songs that you're trying to find. You know what I mean? Like most of the time when you're looking for something like a specific sound, you can never find that sound, but Epidemic does a really good job of providing music that fits the tone of videos. Like it's not corny, hokey, corporate music. Like it's songs that you can actually use. And that is not a sponsorship. I wish it was. Epidemic, if you're listening, man, I'm ready. Put me on the team. So, looking at the timeline right now, we have the opening 4 clips on the left in the video tracks. Those are our finished mountain metal shots, and I reuse some of the images and visual effects from the first video. One of the nice things about doing a series like this is we can start to build and reuse some of the assets that we've already created. In the first video, the opening shot was this mountain shot, the purple one, I think. Is that the one we use? Ooh, this is the opening shot. So we can continue that motif of metal mountain, achieve, climb, earn, whatever, and then we can remind people what the video is about. The way we're titling these videos is something along the lines of Road to Iridescent or earning the #1 rank, but we want every video to stand alone on its own. So if you were somebody to click on this video for the first time and you weren't sure what's going on, we just want to give like a quick snippet of like what we're doing. The first video in the series explains more of like what the overall goal is and how we're going to get there in terms of like how ranked works and how the medal system works and SR. So we don't need to do that here, but we can remind people what we're doing and like why it's so hard to achieve. And that's what we're doing right here. We're bringing in that opening sequence. Whew, let me take a quick breather. Man. Unedited edits. I do a lot of talking. I'm sorry if I talk too fast as well, by the way. I just want to make sure I'm trying to cover as much as I can. And I've realized as I've started to do this series more, it's difficult for me to get into like the minutia of settings, numbers, values that I'm using. So I'm doing my best to cover big picture ideas, how we're layering stuff, like what tool I use, and not necessarily like the timing of the tool or the specific settings that we use for that tool. So yeah, hopefully you guys still find this useful. I've always had, or not always. I've had people on each one tell me that they really appreciated the breakdown. So as long as somebody is still finding these useful, I'm always more than happy to do some breakdowns. Yeah, I guess we could talk a little bit about the different layers that we have going on, specifically with this sequence right here. I believe the dialogue that goes in here is Warzone is impossible to achieve, or Iridescent is impossible to achieve solo. The highest rank is impossible to achieve solo. And the visuals that we used are character cutouts from Warzone. There's 3 of them showing the team. They all fall on screen, and then when he says, or is it, they slide off screen. And the way we layer it is the bottom layer is the brick image. It's this a brick static it's a static image, a brick static image wall. We have some more stock footage of fog in the background, and then I believe it goes the 3 character models, another layer of fog, and then adjustment clips. I think every editor has their own preference for structuring their timelines. What usually works best for me is I will try to keep, oh, it looks like we just skipped forward a little bit. Sorry about that. I did my best to record me going through the entire process, but there were times where I stopped recordings either because DaVinci was running slow or I had to step out and do something. And then I tried to remember to restart the recordings when I got back into it. But what I was saying is, when I structure my timelines, I try to keep the A-roll or whatever that is like the main footage on the first and second track, and then I'll normally do like B-roll or overlays on the above track. So like for this one, you can see I got the background at the bottom, and then we have the characters in the fog above that. And then what I'll do is I'll reserve the tracks above that for either text effects or visual effects. Like if something is popping on screen or I have some form of captioning. And then the very top tracks will usually always be either color corrections or like some kind of adjustment clip with an open effect on it, like a lens blur or like a camera shake to give some kind of natural movement. And that is something that I use in a lot of the shots in this video, some camera shakes.
So last time we hit silver, taking us out of that bottom tier and on our way to gold.
Sorry, I had to take a swig of water.
We have to go from 900 SR to 2100, and we're starting to hit an interesting
Camera shakes are a great way of, what is the word I want to use? They're nice for incorporating things in a way that feels more natural. So it doesn't feel like you bring some motion and life to whatever you're working with. And I have one preset that I'll use for kind of like a handheld camera shake, and I use that throughout this video, mostly with the visual elements that we incorporated, any of the fusion effects that we did. So like, I think you can see, yeah, you can see right there if you look to the left, above the opening mountain shot, there's a layer called handheld camera shake. That's the one I'm talking about. It's a preset that I've saved that gives just kind of like a little wobble so that it feels a little more natural. The other thing that I've used, and I have to give a big shout out to Mr. Peej. I hope I'm not butchering your name. Peej space ENT. If you don't know who Peej is, yeah, he's the man. He's the GOAT. Peej does a lot of motion graphic work and fusion work on YouTube. And he puts out a ton of free resources for people to learn and incorporate into their own videos. And he's somebody who I always turn to when I'm looking for help in DaVinci Resolve. And one of the things that he shows off a lot and talks about is like pulses and shakes for transitions. There are a lot of times in your video, and right now I'm trying to figure out the next sequence to use, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. But there are a lot of times in your videos where you want something to have a little bit more impact, or you want the movement to feel more like it would in real life, and you can do that with shakes. So I actually downloaded his shake pack, Shake Shack. Peej's Shake Shack Shake Pack, and I started playing around with it in this video, and yeah, it's really useful. I would encourage it, but again, he's got a million different videos on how to create your own, so I would turn to him, and you can save your own and make your own presets, and yeah, super useful. So shout out Peej, man, that's the GOAT. That's the GOAT right there. We love that guy. So it looks like I'm moving on to the next sequence and kind of continuing that motif of climbing the ranks and the mountains. I had this idea of having the character, like having a shot where you actually see the character grabbing on top of a cliff and then revealing the medal that they're trying to get. And I struggled for a while to find imagery or anything that gave the right look that I wanted. And what I ended up figuring out or thinking of was just looking for like a random climbing video. Just anything where I could get somebody's hand grabbing something. And luckily on Envato Elements, shout out Envato Elements as well. Please sponsor me. I would love you forever. On Envato Elements, there was video of literally somebody grabbing a cliff, which is perfect. What I'm gonna do is something similar to what I did in the Weight of Warzone, not the World of War, WOW. The Weight of Warzone video that I did for Zach as well. I talked a little bit about it on one of my other YouTube videos where I broke down that one. And if you haven't seen that video, I would recommend that video for those looking to get a little more in detail with how I edit videos. It's a little more specific and thought out. But what I did in that video was I wanted to create an image of somebody falling, but when you do that, it doesn't really fit the look of the like gaming stuff, because most stock footage is like it's footage, right? It's like it's camera reel. It's stuff filmed in the real world. There's not a lot of like stock media out there that's like motion graphics or even like a caricature or whatever. So what we do is I create two different pieces using this cliff shot. I have one with the hand coming up and grabbing, and then I have another with the cliff appearing on screen. And with both of those shots, you can see in the top right, I apply the watercolor effects. I don't know if there's a better way of limiting detail and color with video that you're using, because that's what I use it for. I use it to just like reduce the sharpness and amount of colors within a specific shot. And that way you can turn basically anything that's like a high-res footage into something that looks more like motion graphics, which is kind of nice. So what I'm doing right now is I'm cutting out the rock, the cliff that we're climbing on. What we're gonna eventually do is I'm gonna composite it on a blue sky background, because the backdrop that we're using right now is just it's not it. I wonder actually if I could have just used the object removal tool on this. In the studio version, there's a tool called object tracking or object removal or magic mask, or I can't remember what it is, but you can essentially draw a line and it'll like automatically mask stuff out for you. So maybe I should have just done that. But I think the key for the opening sequence on Zach's video was like a lot of movement and a lot of things that catch your eye and get you interested in like, okay, what's going on? And one of the ways we did that was one, like creating things that look good. And the other way was like adding some visual pieces, or not visual pieces, man, I'm losing my mind, was adding animation, like keyframing some things. So this is actually probably my favorite shot that we end up doing in this video. Like I mentioned, it's kind of, I think it ends up being broken down into 4 different parts. So you can see I have the metal progression graph already in the background. We have a layer for the cliff, and then we have a tracked layer for the hand. And I think the reason why this ends up looking pretty cool is that we have the hand as a separate layer, and it comes and it flies on screen. And then the cliff, what I do is I believe I bring that into Fusion, and I have it translate from right to left. So like the cliff appears on screen, and then we animate the both of them to pull down out of the frame. And what that does is it gives you a sense of weight and motion, because you have the cliff coming on, or the hand coming on to the screen, grabbing this rock face and then pulling it down. And when you pull it down, it reveals this like blue sky and the ranked progression behind it. So I think it does a good job of serving a couple purposes. Like, one, it's kind of a cool thing and it's fun to show, and then it gets people interested in, or it grabs people's attention to focus on the rank progression, which is the point of this sequence. Is not just to look cool, but we want to make sure we're showing off the subject matter that Zach is talking about. And yeah, I felt like this was probably one of the shots, even though I think it's literally like a second and a half. That's probably my favorite one in the video, just because it was like the first time I think I had made something that felt like it actually belonged in the video. You know, it kind of wasn't. Most of the time when I add graphics and animations, like, it looks like a YouTube graphic or animation. It just, because I'm not good enough to composite things well. But yeah, the little hand cliff thing, I felt like came out really, really well. There's a couple other, I guess in general, like, this opening minute is mostly like animation work. And the next shot that I'm going to be doing is we do a cool transition where Zach is saying, like, I think he says, last time we hit silver. And now we're out of the bottom tiers and we're going to gold. So what we do is, you can see to the left of my playhead, there's two really small chopped up squares that are adjustment clips. And there's a clip before, or the clip on the left is him showing off the silver 1 medal. And then the clip on the right is us going to be transitioning to showing him working towards gold. And the transition that we do, is, you can see that's the clip right there, is we have we have it zoom in on the medal to the left, and then as it zooms out on the same image of the medal, but in a different scene. So kind of a cool transition. It's somewhat of a match cut. The other, oh yeah, I guess it is a match cut, because the operator that he's using right now is the one that's on screen. And what I did was I cropped out this standing version of her, and then I think we overlay her on top to kind of like blend the transition. I don't think I'm doing a good job of describing it, but yeah, this next sequence was kind of a cool little match cut where we zoom in on one scene, and then we zoom out showing similar imagery, but going on to the next point. It's kind of cool. So yeah, most of this opening minute or so was just a lot of hand animation work, and I don't even know, I guess motion graphic work. I feel like I'm misusing the word animation. But yeah, it is a lot of manual stuff. You notice that we haven't actually showed any of Zach's gameplay yet. I think after this, we show a clip of him playing the game to let people know that, like, hey, there actually is gameplay. But anytime we want to show something like this, where we want to include visuals that he didn't record, this is like the most time consuming part for sure. And it's why I spend so much time working through the intro sequences. As far as like things that I used to make this work well, and here, yeah, see cool match cut stuff. So yeah, I'm overlaying the character model on top of the one scene, and then I think I fade it on to the next cut. And so it's kind of like a cool little match cut. Isn't that cool? So yeah, what were some of the tools that we used to make this happen? A lot of it was done in the Fusion page. And again, that's why I say I would get comfortable using the Fusion page. Mostly using the transform node. And one of the things that I figured out that's really useful to do is when you use a transform node in Fusion, typically I think the default transform node, it couples your X and Y position. So when you go to do spline work, it gets kind of funky. A way to get around that is to right click on that XY position, I think modify, and then you do XY path, and that'll split up your XY location. So that was really useful to use. What were some of the other things that we did to make this happen? Oh, a lot of compound clips. Compound clips are really useful. If you're from the Premiere world, compound clips are nesting. It's it's how you nest something. What am I doing right here? Oh, you know what? I think I'm trying to reuse this background from the first video because this is from the first video, and I think I wanted a background for the the bronze, silver, gold shot that we do. And I don't think I ended up using this, but here's me trying to figure out how to make it work. And it does not happen. So compound clips. Compound clips are really nice. If you ever have something like say you do a mask or you apply some kind of like effect to your shot, or anytime you set up something and you don't want later changes to affect the things that you set up. So like masking is a great example. Say you set up a mask of something and you've perfectly outlined and cut something out, or you've perfectly tracked it, and you want to reposition your video so that it fits or moves with whatever you got going on. Anyways, if you nest it into a compound clip, you essentially create a new media file in Fusion with those effects baked in. So it's really useful for when you have things set up and you don't want them to change, but you like want to be able to move your clip around and like play around with it, or even add layer like effects on top of that. Really useful. It's nice as well because you can always go into your compound clip and mess around with the things that you set up that were like nested in there. The only thing that you have to worry about sometimes is when you create a compound clip, it essentially like it creates a new media file and it locks in the resolution at whatever you've nested it in. So like say you created a compound clip and you had everything zoomed in to twice its normal zoom level. Well, if you were shooting in, if the video file is in 1440p and you've zoomed in at a 2x level, that compound clip is now going to be frozen at 720p, if that makes sense. So really useful. You just kind of got to be careful with how you use them. So we did a lot of compound clip work. And I think besides that, a lot of it is just keyframing position and like finding the right pictures and videos to use. It's kind of the bulk of the work that went into this. The other thing that I personally feel like made these work well is, again, the sound design. So you can see, I think I have my song track underneath this, and I'm not sure if I've done any of like the sound effect work, but anytime we have like this mountain sliding on screen, I add some kind of panning whoosh or air gust effect plus some kind of impact noise to sell the thought of it sliding on screen and then stopping. That's always really, really important. And I think right now you're seeing me just fine tune how things slide in. But yeah, so the sound design work is really important. It's kind of hard to visualize that. But yeah, I have a library of sound effects that I've slowly started to download over time, and I've gotten them from just like converting a YouTube video to an MP3. There are free sound effects websites that you can also use, and then I have subscriptions to stock media websites that also provide sound effects. So I have a library of stuff that I used. I normally per each video will have to go and download a new set of them, but at this stage I know kind of what I'm looking for, and I know which ones I like to use. So like this is a pack of on screen. It's like a pack of whoosh to impact sound effects that I use for the mountain flying in and then hitting. So yeah, that was really useful. And you know, I don't know if there's anything else that's like really overly complicated to talk about in this video. What I continue to do through the end is we build up this opening sequence that's roughly 30 seconds to a minute long, reminding people what the story is, like what are we doing here, and then we show visuals to illustrate, okay, this is the highest medal or the highest rank, this is how we're going to achieve it, this is how the point system works, and then we start getting into the gameplays. Because at the end of the day, this is a video focused on Warzone gameplay. I think we end up showing the bulk of 2 of his better games. He had recorded, I think, 6 or 7 usable games that we could pull clips from, but after playing them through, I found 2 that I felt like were the stronger games that we could kind of build a story off of. The first is the one that we're going through right now, and I think this is his highest kill game, so I think this is the one where he gets the most kills and the best placement, so I felt like it was a strong starting point. And then the second game we use is when he actually hits gold. In between that, I pull clips from his different games to help continue to tell the story of what's happening, because this is the first time where he struggles to get some better games, and I think it's only going to get more difficult as he goes along and as he hits these higher ranks. So the layout for the rest of the video is after the intro, we hop in and say like, okay, let's start whatever. I can't remember what he says. Like, let's get into it. Let's go, guys. And boom, we hop into the first game, and then we try to show like, hey, good game, like, oh, this is awesome, this is gonna be super easy. And then we have a middle section where we show conflict. We show him disconnecting and him not winning and him having poor teammates and some of the things that make this a struggle. It's like, ah, dang, like maybe this isn't gonna be so easy. And then we end with like, okay, we gotta push through, let's make like one more good run at it, and then we show him hitting it. That way we have a little bit of structure to the video. There's a like intro premise, opening like, hey, everything's gonna be okay. Got like a little middle conflict area, and then resolution at the end. And in that sense, I feel like it works decently well. The only other thing that I think I'll mention for today is that as I'm going throughout and editing the different videos, I try to include visual I feel like I've used the word visual like 400 times. I'm so sorry. I try to include things that continue to connect the narrative of him reaching this highest medal, and I do that with I created a ranked overlay that we use throughout that shows him climbing the ranks, and we have, I think, a couple of different graphics that we use, but the rest is really, it's just music and gameplay. It's just music, sound design, and gameplay. So I hope you guys found this useful. If you have specific questions about things that I did in that video, please let me know. And if you watched the video and you have feedback or thoughts on things that I could improve on, I'd love to hear it. But I think I talked enough about the things that I want to talk about. I really hope you guys enjoy the unedited edit, and yeah, enjoy the rest of whatever day it is for you, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.